Hello there. You like that title? I do too. I've given it some serious thought. When I remember the many years I had called myself an atheist, when anyone had ever asked me what are your religious views, and then for a few years, and from that point to my surrender to Christ, I would call myself agnostic, because I guess as I grew up, I couldn't believe for myself after a certain point there wasn't anything. But I'm working on a quote in my head that it's very vague. It's not. I mean, it's a quote. It's meant to be interpreted, so it's not meant to just be taken as it's written. So atheists are wrong, agnostics are halfway there, and the modern Christian sets them both back a few hundred steps or something like that. Basically, it's like this guy, he's not getting there. This guy, he's almost there. This guy who believes in the thing is just a little bit over the top and is kind of push. It's like kind of how I feel Christian messaging and the buffoonery and the charlatans that exist in the God sphere of this of particularly capitalist America, where no one's profiting off of God more in his good word than his well and faithful servants, with their mega churches and their just convincing thousands and perhaps millions at home to pray, and then you'll have stacks of money magically appear in your mailbox. And listen, I get it, and you see all that shit, and all that is driven into the mainstream, and that's all we hear, because you got to go to like those local channels to find the church broadcasts and things. You hear a parody of the Bible almost in most things. I mean, it's, whether someone's saying Jesus' name in vain, which it's strange. I did that often. I did that all the time, and I know I still swear a lot, but that it doesn't escape my lips anymore. And if I ever hear someone say it around me, I don't say anything. I'm not gonna. I just in my head, I just say, Father, forgive them, because I believe that's into, and I just in my head on their behalf. So, but when I came to think about it, it's atheism puts, so definitionally on paper, atheism is the theistic idea, or the anti-theistic idea, that there is a God, and that there's no God. There's nothing, that it's a belief that everything came from nothing. They believe in the Big Bang, but it's like, well, what do you attribute that to? I mean, there's things that there is a thing that is already able to be attributed to it, but it's these questions, they can't answer them, and because science can't answer them. And you can't answer, you can't question God with scientific means. It's like, yes, I get it. Science is an intellectual practice. It's very important for measuring and advancing the human species here on this planet. But when it comes to the divine, you're talking about a whole different realm. It can't be understood with these earthly or arithmetic means. It's just like, and that's where everybody falls short. It's like, prove it with science, and it's like, it's not science though. It's just not a science-based thing. It's and this is where you can never get most to remove themselves from that rut. Fuck, man, it's like, I fully believe in science. It's like, it's necessary. Science has helped us develop so much, learn so much, and learn what hasn't worked over the years. You see this bastard? It's because Is he out? Fuck. Mosquitoes are awful. Been terrible. That was a big boy. I think I got him out there, and then his cousin snuck in. Fucking damn, dude, you can't smack these things. You can't smack them anymore. They're over the iterations of the mosquitoes, they've been eating all the chemicals, and they've been strengthened. They're resistant to physical harm, it seems. Wild. If he comes across again, we'll make quick work of him. I think he's disorientated. My hand is buzzing though. I smacked my nerves off a few different things in here. My main point here is atheism it's already the belief that there is no God. And that's it. So it's just emptiness. There's no onus on anybody who calls himself an atheist to disprove God. It's already, you believe he doesn't exist. You're not, there's no burden on you to prove a negative. And they know that. So it's like, what is atheism actually filled with? Take a look at the atheism subreddit. At least in that place, atheism is a whole different thing there. And what it really amounts to is, yes, not believing that there is a God, but also blaming a God whenever something terrible happens. Suddenly the belief is there that it was a God that did this for evil. And whenever anything good happens, it's always human-based. All tragedy must be God-based. Nothing good. It's just so, it's like, why not even consider that? It's so as if you want to remain miserable believing that God is this all-hating deity that hates you. And it's like, it's wild, because everything they think about the Bible and how a lot of them generally perceive Christians, it falls short of, it doesn't keep up with, the unspoken atheistic claim that they're much more morally superior, in thought and in practice than Christians are. And listen, there's a lot of stupid ass Christians out there. It's like, I'll be the first to tell you, man. And listen, I'll be the first to tell you that atheists are validated in how they feel towards God. A lot of them are, because they grew up in an environment where Christ was not taught to them gently, properly. It was used as a punishment. And so Christ became this image of someone completely that he is not, being described to these children of these parents who were religious zealots, and that's sometimes the unfortunate case. And it's also, the parents could just be atheists themselves, and then they just badmouth God from the beginning of the kid's ability to, begin to mimic speech. And that's terrible too. I can understand you don't believe in God. But that is not what, that can't be what atheism is. It's just too empty. Just a base belief that there's no God. There's just, what sort of conversation generates from that? So what do you fill it with? What do you fill it with? What do they fill it with? Let's take the subreddit, for example. It's just vitriol towards the faithful, towards anybody, Muslims, Jews, Christians. And yes, listen, throughout history and today, many religious individuals, millions upon billions of them throughout the world, are doing ridiculous things in the name of God, thinking that they're justified because they interpreted God's word improperly. And they used it in a favorable way that will be judged against them disfavorably when they see themselves before God. But you check out the subreddit, and it's a lot of these people who are, I don't think they're idiots, but they're very misled on what all Christians are as a whole, which you can't be intellectually honest and say that everybody that is of this group, all denominations of it, all versions of its teachings and what so forth, are this or that. And that's just them. That's just them giving them the out of the conversation. That is them giving them the trophy, because they've decided in their head, if this person right here is just the same as that lunatic over there, because they believe the same thing, but this guy, he seemed a lot more calm, doesn't matter. They both believe the same thing. I don't want to go to where either of those guys are going, wherever they think they're going. And it's such a terrible thing that people allow themselves to be blinded by the unjust actions of others, because they're doing those things through God or based on what they think God told them. And it's a shame. It's unfortunate. And so atheism is not just a disbelief in God. It is completely, it's just villainizing just all individuals of all religious faiths, and pointing out how stupid they are and how much better we are than them. Great, dude. You're making light of, people dying because they sought out, that there's an article about pilgrimage of Muslims practicing one of, if not the most important pillar of all of the Islamic faith is the Hajj. It's the journey to Makkah, to pray and to do what they do for their faith beliefs. And a lot of them ended up dying during the trek there because of the high heat and temperatures. And it's like these people, whoever these people are on the internet, they just take this article and they post it. And it's like, these were people that had families, and they were probably well-meaning people overall. And, their beliefs definitely didn't align with mine completely, but I can't say they were bad people. They were faithful in what they believed in, and they were willing to risk their lives. And it's like, okay, sure, it's very easy, low-hanging fruit to call that person stupid, not taking the necessary risks or necessary precautions to protect yourself against hot weather, inclement weather that could cause fatalities. That I think that's silly. But I don't think them doing performing their religious these religious duties that they felt they had to uphold just because it wasn't a decent temperature out. I don't think it was like their religion, unless there's something that says that you must brave the elements of the hellish heat, and it's just some people just didn't prepare properly. I think it's fine that I'm sure it's not the first time people have surely prepared. But that's what all these atheists just pass that off as. These people that they won't care to find out anything other than what they believed in. That's enough for them to know exactly who they were, what they were about, and that's a shame. And it's like, who are a bunch of like little shit pricks on the internet? These little fucking spoiled suburbanites, who I am imagining are most of them, just talking shit about these people who lost those they loved, and because they also believe in that faith too. I mean, imagine showing them that, and that's like, this is what the people who don't believe in God, that think they're better than everybody else, the humanitarians of the world, this is what they think of these anonymous individuals. And they have no qualms about it either. They just don't see, it's like all Christians are this. Well, it's like, my friend, it's very easy for me to look at you and say, well, all atheists are you. Because it's like I was the same exact way. Just you fill that void of not believing anything with talking shit about other people who have peace and happiness in believing in something. It's because you stopped learning about it because you settled on the answers that you got that weren't complete, they were incorrect, they were incoherent, but they were told to you in a very passionate way by someone who also didn't believe. You stuck with those, you never questioned them, and you just ran with it lifelong. And it's crazy too. It's like, I credit Cliff Connectley a lot to helping me understand a lot of the things that I always had trouble understanding with God. And as I approached my 30s and I was watching him, those questions resurfaced in the form of these college students asking him. And so I would listen earnestly and listen to his answer, and it made sense. And it kind of upsets you because it's like, it doesn't seem fair in certain ways. And he's at least, he says it himself. I don't know. He'll answer that to some questions because he knows that not everything was answered in the Bible. Just not everything that is. It's just, it has an answer. It's all the things that are needed for, a good life, access into heaven, a seat of eternal salvation next to the Lord our God. And I mean, the Bible is an epic, if nothing else. If nothing else, if it was just written, blah, 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 to control the masses, whatever that's supposed to mean. First of all, I don't think something that was meant to control the masses would have went on further with such eloquence, elegance, peace, prosperity, and such reassurance. I don't think something that was meant to control the people would be written with such thoughtfulness and care of the human condition. And if you haven't read the Bible and you're an atheist, you've already decided that God doesn't exist, and you've never read the Bible, you never opened it up, but you have this crude understanding of these few verses that you like to have at the ready, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're not trumping the ignorant Christian that you made look stupid. It's you who is you're passing up your ticket out of the realm. It sounds crazy, right? It's like, how could there be anything after death? Well, it's not that we experience death. So therefore we don't see anything after death. What is after death is a weeping and gnashing of teeth, an outer darkness. Those who walk with Christ are shown a way through death. There is no after. For there to be an after death, one has to have been of death. They've had to have been within death. But instead, go through death into eternity. Your soul cleansed in the blood of the slain lamb. And people, like, they hear that, and it's because it doesn't sound scientific to them. I get it. It doesn't sound scientific at all, because it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be scientific. God cannot be explained by the practices that were created by man to understand things on earth. It's like atheists love to be the logical ones. I'm telling you right now, science is not going to get you the answers that are necessary for you to think that there's a God. I'm telling you. Just 4 months ago, that was me believing the same thing. I need the proof to be shown to me. I need it to descend down in front of me. I need God to sit in my passenger seat and save me. Who are any of us to think that we are allowed or worthy of such an exclusive audience on demand from God? That's the proof that people want. Then they'll believe. And these people don't hear themselves when they speak. It's because their understanding, it stopped at a certain point. They limited themselves to understand something. And so when they're confronted with something new much later on down the line, but they're still ardently firm on disbelieving, they become angered. And you see that a lot in Cliff Connectley's videos. These kids will angrily interject while he's trying to answer a question. That's not a person who is living with peace in themselves. That is a person in turmoil. I don't know what it is. Like, though I never believed and I didn't care too much for Christianity to be put in my face and anything, if I ever saw anybody out evangelizing as an atheist, I am not gonna, maybe when I was much younger, yes, but, excuse me, college students, in just broad daylight, just yelling out, God's not fucking real, not fucking real, and it's not just like with Cliff Connect, it's with other people's videos. Someone used God against certain people growing up in their upbringing. And I can understand how a mentioning of God out in public can enrage some people to that point where they want to attack the person that's talking about it. But that person's in pain. That person's just doing what God's asking of them to do. You can't be upset at them. If you don't like hearing about it, walk until you stop hearing it. That's all. You're not going to be the hero. You're going to make yourself look like a fool. Everybody has one of these and are ready to put it out and to leave your legacy cemented in data on the internet. And it's like people they just don't think. Once a camera gets put in their face, their brain really turns off. And then they just go, you can't film me. It's nuts. It's nuts. People have... But a belief in atheism is just a belief in keeping yourself warm with the derision that you sit in a circle with others with and talk. Like, you see how stupid these fucking dumbass Christians were. They believed in all this shit, and this is what happened to them. All these Muslims over here, these Jews, and it's like the way people and like when anybody is like, well, why are you treating them like that? Like they're like, just because they believe in this, like, well, that's what you get for believing in God. Yeah, you get what you get. And it's not all atheists are empaths, and that's just so it's and they tell themselves that they give themselves that cold subhuman reason to justify the things that they say about others who die, who have no chance of defending themselves. They just spit on a whole human life just because it grew up in such a severely religious reason that it had some people, that's all they can believe in, you know. And that's a shame. And listen, Christians aren't perfect either. There's a lot of but there's a lot of hypocrisy coming from atheism, because they do a lot of what they blame Christians for is, generalizing, thinking this and that. And it's like, I get it. Like, I understand the anger. I was that person. But I had to separate, right? Throughout my understanding, my bettering of my understanding of God, before coming to Christ and surrendering my life to Him, I had to understand for myself, separate these terrible people who have been practicing their faith in God poorly, not properly, because if you understand the Bible, and this is like not even to understand the whole Bible, there are certain tenets of the faith that you have to abide by. Accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, as the Son of God who died on the cross for your sins, my sins, all sins of the world, all sins of all men, all women, all children, whatever, from the time He was crucified. Praying daily prayer, repenting for your sins, whenever it's necessary, asking for forgiveness, humility, strength, the qualities that your soul needs in order for your body to be strong here on earth. And through consistency of that, you do feel it. And I know, listen, if you're still listening, rolling your eyes, like, this is so ridiculous. You're trying to think about it scientifically. Stop doing that. That's the intelligent thing to do, okay? The intelligent thing to do as an atheist is to accept that you cannot explain God through scientific means. You can't explain God the same way that everything else here on earth that we can observe and see with our eyes has been explained. You just can't. You're being intellectually dishonest when you do that. But it's the easiest way for atheists to support the claim that there's no God. Because we can't prove him with arithmetic. We can't prove it with math. And it's like... And that's just... They close the door right then and there. And like Religious, great movie. Bill Maher. But that just speaks to the folly of how poorly people have followed Christ and religion and other faiths that I don't really believe. I don't believe in. I don't buy into Islam, Judaism, Buddhism. And though I tinkered around with all of them to some degree, minimal degrees really. But it's good to have an understanding of all of them. And if you're someone who's struggling finding something to believe in, and like that's truly the thing though with atheism, like it's a belief in nothing, so therefore that nothing has to be filled with shitting on people who have peace and believing in something. And it's like they'll post an article about one Christian doing one stupid thing or many stupid things, and maybe even several, a group of Christians. Well, they all act like this. This is what they all do, and it's like, all right, therefore you don't want to have a conversation about it. If you've decided that all Christians are this, it's impossible to change your mind. Yeah, the only it's I don't know, but I do know now that atheism is not, it's just not a true practice. It's just emptiness. It's nothing. It's nothing. A friend of mine recently told me that he believed in something called Omnism. And I looked into it. And, he's a friend of mine who used to be Christian too. And I think there were certain factors that soured his view of Christianity because of how it was, like many people, like it was brought up to him, but that was a whole different conversation. And I looked into it, and it's Omnism is basically a respect or belief that there's value in all the religions. And then I started to say, you might as well just call yourself an atheist. It's like, what are your moral like, all right, not moral responsibilities, but what are the tenets of, what is there to fall back on with like reassurance? Oh, whoopsies. Oops. Oh. It's happened before, right? We've been through this. Ah, beautiful. It's just, it's a belief in all these different religions, but there's nothing, like, you don't settle on one. And you don't attribute any of creation to a god. My friend described to me, it was like, it's just, I believe in the Big Bang, and I believe that it's energy. And I'm like, well, where's that energy come from though? That energy has to come from a source. And he's like, well, I think that source is the light. And it's like, me too. And it was frustrating because he, in his argument, he was like really saying everything that a Christian believes, and it's like, you just either call yourself an atheist, or it's like, what are we doing here? I feel like things like that. I look. There's a list too. It's like you go on the Wikipedia, Omnism Wikipedia, notable omnists. There's a few people, and like a few people, I don't even know who they are. And then the Shaquille O'Neal, notable omnist. And it said, it was a quote, it's like, I'm an omnist. I'm a Jew, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian, I'm a people person. And it's like, oh man. Dude, we do not need any sort of bad, just dog shit, anti-religious influences from celebrities like that. It's just such an empty way of thinking, because anyone who truly believes in that just kind of gives up any sort of responsibility to actually learn about the religions and how they all contradict one another. And I tried to explain that to him. Because it was frustrating, because it was like, I consider my friend to be very smart, very, very grounded in his thoughts. And it was just sort of like it was just kind of like weird for him to believe in something like this. And it's like, I guess, like, if you want to call yourself someone who studies all religions, like a scholar of religious learning, like, that's one thing. But it's like, Omnism says it believes in something, but it doesn't believe in anything. You can't just approach all these different gods and say, hey, I believe in all you guys. You know, it's like, if you want to split the afterlife share of, you know, what you all offer, you know, just give me a little taste of each one. You know, it's just, and trying to explain that to me, he's like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense. And it's like, okay. It's weird, dude. Religion and the way it's been pieced apart, and the way people are putting themselves in these smaller and smaller groups, it's as broken up as is, say, you know, the whole pronoun gender thing. Like, it's just an expansive universe. It's like Star Wars. It can be milked forever and kept trendy and culturally relevant. But it's not seen that way. It's just, this society, it's just miring itself deeper and deeper in confusion. People are getting pretty sick and tired that they have to just walk on eggshells because other people can't handle the realities of life and the rigors of society, and how people can be assholes and this and that. Everybody has to be canceled, and no one knows anything about forgiveness. It's about getting back at the other one. It's about using the child of a divorce to attack another parent, showing no love to that child whatsoever. This is like the sort of godless world that is plaguing us. And sure, you can bring up all the instances of religious violence done in the name of God, and it's all terrible. It is. But it's humans doing human things, whether they say they do it for God or not. Whether a rapist said he raped a woman because God told him to, or because he just did it because he wanted to rape a woman, that was his free will. And it was his free will to also tell himself that God told him to do that. Okay? That a person who says that is not well. It certainly was not God. Certainly a demon can tell you that he is God. He can enter you if you're vulnerable enough. If you're allowing yourself to have that seep into you, which I allow. It's science is going to keep a wall between you and understanding what this thing is. I'm sorry. And because you're behind that wall, you don't realize it, but you're behind that wall, and it pisses you off. And so you just talk shit. You just talk shit about these Christians, these Muslims, these Jews to no end, as if it's going to give something to your life. I mean, for how long do you feel better than a Christian or a Muslim or a Jew before you fuck up in life? And how quickly do you forget that you even don't even believe in a God? How quickly do you forget and immediately start cursing God when something bad happens? Suddenly the belief is there, but all because he chose you out of all of us and fucked you over, right? That was me my entire life. Why did God do this to me? Why did God do this to me? Really? You think you're that special? You think God was made to hate you? And that's how you want to live? You want to live with that being your understanding of God? Because what? Because you think it gets back at the Christians that you hate as well? You're doing nothing but hurting yourself. Goodness. I don't know what sort of hell a person has to go through in their mind to convince themselves of that. I don't know where you have to go to convince yourself that God exists. Well, I do quite a bit. And I tried everything else. The atheism's empty, and it believes in nothing than trashing those who are faithful. There's no intellectual discussions about, well, here's how God doesn't exist, okay? Because he can't be explained with science. So therefore, that takes that away from the table. What's left? Let's talk shit about the Christians, the Jews, the Muslims, the whoever. That's what atheism is. People will tell you, like, no, like, it's just like we don't believe in God. I was like, no, that's sure, on paper. That's what it's about, right? It says, I think it's the atheism subreddit, it's number 2 in ethics, and that's hilarious. And it's wild too, because anytime you want to point out their hypocrisy to them, they just want to throw some shit some other dumb Christian did at you. They don't want to understand what the Bible's about, and they also don't want to understand the person that's explaining it to them. As I mentioned earlier about Cliff Connectley, they're very threatened by people like him, because there are very few people who bring as cogent of an argument for the existence of God than most do. And you'll see, like, whole conversations about his gait, or how he'll just, like, pose and have stances during his little seminars where he's talking to kids. And it's like, this is what you've reduced this man to? You dismiss all context of what he has said. And I literally remember reading someone mentioning how there's violence in his behavior. Violence in his behavior. As there's several college students saying, fuck you, like, God doesn't exist, blah, blah, blah. It's wild. It's unbelievable what a person will tell themselves. With a person as calm and forthcoming as Cliff Connectley, who breaks down those tough questions that I needed answered for myself, still there are people so resistant and so bent on decharacterizing him and defaming him. They need to keep anyone who is a threat to those who have kept themselves firm in misunderstanding God. And they have to trash him. I asked my friend too if he had ever heard of Cliff Connectley. And immediately, oh, I hate that guy. He nitpicks the Bible. Really? And it's like, I think he answers people's questions with context that's relevant in the Bible. And it's the thing about hypocrisy too. It's like, to support Omnism or to support atheism, you really have to reduce your understanding of God, and you do have to, in fact, nitpick the Bible. This man has not, Cliff Connectley, he has not spent, most of his life understanding his faith just to be told that he nitpicks the Bible. But that's just, and he also admitted, my friend, that Cliff could shut him up. And it's like, well, yeah, he knows what he's talking about compared to you, and compared to most people he argues with. It's like, what are you saying here? Just like, he explains it and breaks it down better than I've ever heard. If all I ever seen of Christianity was the Westboro Baptist Church and just people saying gays are going to hell, just showing up at pride parades with megaphones and talking shit, I wouldn't be a Christian either. If that's all I saw, so it's like, I understand. So, but if you are even resistant to see something of the alternative, and then you're shown that, and you still decide that it's just as bad as the sign holding bigot that's calling every every person walking by with a military fatigues on or a rainbow LGBTQI patch wherever on there, but you call them the F slur. If you're really gonna call that person the same as that person, you've made it clear. You just don't want to. You've made it clear for the person who is hopefully aware enough to understand you, and you made it clear for yourself that you're intent on not believing, and you're just there to breed animus towards the faithful. That's what atheism is. Atheism is a failure to prove God's existence with science, so it's filled that void with talking shit about human beings who believe in God. Just does nothing to... Yes, many people practice believing in God and going about God and doing things in the name of God improperly, maliciously, all the time. That it doesn't disprove him. It just means that humans are as flawed as God admits to have making us. Read the Bible. You want answers to your atheistic claims. Read the Bible. Read it earnestly. Just listen to it. Put on a book. Any of the books. You don't even have to start at Genesis. Start at the Gospels. Those of you who think that the Bible's all about controlling others, controlling the masses, listen to the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus is pure ethical genius. Listen to that. Listen to it with your heart. Right, not scientific, right? Listen to it with your heart. What do you mean? Come on. Listen to it with the intent on trying to absorb its understanding. And really, if you really did try to understand it and you walk away truly understanding it, how could you tell yourself that any of this was written to control the masses? Would it have not stopped at the 10 Commandments? There it is. There's a rudimentary mock-up of what we're going to do for the rest of our lives forever. But no. That's why the New Testament's been written. Through the New Testament, we understand how God has given us a way through death through the sacrifice of His Son, Jesus Christ. Another atheistic claim people will say, and one that my friend said that baffled me to this day, because his words to me, the crucifixion and the resurrection were meaningless. And I almost made the mistake of taking it personally, because it's like, that's a hurtful claim. I mean, especially to someone's faith. Meaningless. And said, why didn't God do something more incredible like a send-off? Or Jesus, why didn't he do something more incredible like a send-off the cross to save himself? And my friend, as the Christian he claimed himself to always have been, didn't understand he was just being the disbeliever that was crucified beside Jesus, the thief on the cross. And I explained that to him, and it's like he rambled the way around it somehow. And it was just upsetting, because it's like, I don't know. But Jesus wasn't brought to earth to show himself off to us as a superhero. It's like, yeah, he walked on water, he water to wine. I mean, like, yeah, he's imbued with God's power, but God's plan was for him to die. Jesus, God knew that Jesus would need to have ways to show others that he is truly the light of the world. And for all those different works, it's like at that point the disciples believed, many people believed, the apostles believed. Jesus didn't have to ascend off the cross. That wasn't planned that way. And when someone brings an argument like that, that's something I would have believed in when I was like a big Dragon Ball Z fan. Like, why didn't Jesus just save himself? I thought he was like the good guy. Why did he just die? And it's like, and if someone who recently like abandoned their faith and then has that view, you're better off really not having a conversation with them about that. I love my friend, but that conversation between him and I is not ready to go anywhere yet. But he's a very kind person. And that's more than I can say for a lot of like the atheists I see who are just angry on and on and on about religion. And that's just what their life is filled with. And I don't see what is the fulfillment in that? You're anxiety ridden all the time. You're going to tell yourself you're not, but you are. You're stressed out. You're worried about what that asshole is going to be sending you, what sort of scripture he's going to be sending you to talk about your bullshit. And you're thinking about it, and you can't wait to get back at them and respond, and you will, and because you can't resist, because as you will prove to them, even though you tell yourself you're better than them, you're not. You don't believe in them. You act as if they're beneath you, but you will occupy a lot of your time talking shit about them and fighting with them in comments. And what are you doing? This is what results in believing in nothing. You fill your life with blindness of the heart. And disguising your utter confusion as expressed anger towards others as to why are they so happy with their belief in God? How are they so at peace with Jesus right now? I pray everybody who is in pain for an answer to that question is shown the answer. And I pray for you out there, the angry atheist, to have enough sense to not try to go about God with the means of the here and now. Science and math will not get you the answers that are necessary to walk with Christ. Who he is well written about. It's not a formula. He's not an integer. He's not a subparticle. He is the way, the one true way. That's all. Thanks for listening. God bless you.